Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. I don't exactly know how I've done it, but I've managed to clear up 38 minutes of space in here, so I have no risk of ever running into the issue last time of, having to split the thing in four. Well, I say that, I could technically ramble on for 38 minutes if I wanted to, but I don't really think I do, because this week doesn't really have too much of an update, really. I don't really know. I've been doing some Alpha Academy stuff in the background. That's mainly because I'm waiting for some backgrounds, actually, for my scene of the mutant girl that is next. So I have all of the gachas actually, filmed and recorded. And trust me, there were quite a lot of them. But actually, this time I'm just waiting on that to be done. And it is making progress with it, because Ghosty actually does give me updates, which is what I want. Now, of course, the other person I need updates from is actually Quadzy, because she has now undertaken the scene that she was going to do way back in the day, and just a bunch of other projects from both of us got in the way of them. So I'm going to probably ask for an update on that later, because I finished filming mine, I just have to sync it up. But that's me for the time being. Thank you all for watching. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, you've seen the title, you know the one major event, I say major, relatively major event that occurred in this week. And that is, of course, that I actually unveiled a transphobe from the Gacha community. And now, whenever I say that, people are probably going to be like, typical Gacha community, harboring different types of homophobia and transphobia and blah, blah, blah. And other people are like, ew, get that person away from the Gacha community because it's such an LGBT positive place. And yeah, it's weird because both of those are actually true. But I think the reason behind that really is because since the majority of the Gacha community are either allies or LGBTQ plus themselves, then, part of the negative the negative attention that we attract as a community, well, that partly comes from people, who use that to use that as that, type of hatred to bring us down. Now, in some cases, unfortunately, it works. In other cases, not really. And in other cases, some people within the Gacha community itself who always make it to the top page of r/Gacha Life Cringe and Gacha Club Cringe, which are two separate subreddits, so, that's fun. But, yeah, they always make it up there, particularly when other people, outside of the group that are directly attacking the Gacha community want a somewhat easier target. And albeit well-justified target, because, I'm not exactly going to be like, oh yeah, don't bully the people who are spreading hatred across the world. Because, I don't know, some people might argue that's what I kind of did. So, what happened was, going back to the day before that video in question was posted, I was actually in one of the streams done by Wipeout and ReaderFan14, who you might know as somebody who has joined the channel fairly recently. I think from the guidance of Josh, and someone whose content I have briefly touched for the time being. But yeah, as another active, streaming Gacha tuber, I of course was curious, and I occasionally join some of his streams. It really depends on the stream in question, because a lot of them are role-playing as the characters from his series and figuring out the next logical place to go for the next episode. Now, as a formula, that's actually kind of brilliant, and I tried to replicate that for a new story and it didn't go entirely too well, unfortunately. But yeah, he seems to have the system on lockdown. But yeah, the reason I don't join those too often is because I obviously have the issue of not really being too familiar with the characters. I mean, I reviewed one episode of his side of things, and then one episode of the sort of prequel series. No, not pretty prequel, but a series that takes place before and that isn't with different characters. So yeah, it's kind of a thing where I'm like, I can't really contribute too much as of yet. So yeah, I'm slowly working my way down, you know, that famous list, so that I can actually cover that eventually. But yeah, given how things are right now with, you know, wanting to go back to Bad Girl's Little Boy, Tiny Human, etc., etc., it does take some time. So yeah, who knows? But I do sometimes just go in there, have a bit of a chat. You can chat outside of roleplay, obviously. And, you know, you can tell because they always mention, like, what character they're playing when they have, like, the character say, character, : this is my line. So, yeah, it does work out. But, yeah, on this occasion, I think it was around the time, actually, when Wipeout Arena Fan was actually particularly seemed to be underperforming, at least in terms of YouTube numbers. I still, to this day, don't know if he's actually achieved 400 subscribers. He's at 399, last time I checked. So, if anyone's watching this video, look out Wipeout and Arena Fan 14, all one word, and, you know, give some of his stuff a watch and possibly subscribe. So, yeah. That hopefully makes up for what happened afterwards. So, you know, I was trying to be there to support him, partly because I also messed up during my stream and actually made him feel like he wasn't as good a writer, because some of the stuff we were trying to set up for the actual character, for the new character, we just I didn't really give, it didn't seem to conflict with what was actually going on, and there was like a whole scene where there was a bunch of filler and stuff. And actually that kind of ties into what occurred with Drama Club. So I guess I could talk about this week, actually. Drama Club actually happened. Where in Drama Club we actually, it seems that, yeah, we go back and forth between how to structure that actual series. You know, do we want the episodes to come out, to be fully improvisational and just flow for as long as the scene can last, or do we want to keep it succinct, you know, to help out with viewer retention and also with a little bit of structure, so that you know, particularly the people who are editing it actually have a standing hope, because I ran out of storage while recording that video, and that's not something that happens too often. So yeah, we're gonna have to work that out eventually. And also it was a midnight recording, so wasn't exactly the best time. Yeah, considering that I also messed up last week and didn't show up for the previous one, had to cancel all of it. I said, okay, fine, I'll deal with outside of my time zone just this once. We better not start this late ever again. So yeah, all in all, it actually did end up working. But yeah, we're debating that. So I guess that's kind of ties into that situation on stream. Well, maybe it was just his style that I wasn't particularly used to. So that really was on me. So yeah, I was there trying to actually support him. And around this time, we actually, what was also going on was apparently one of his former friends was actually exposing him, or, you know, calling him out for being toxic. Because Wipeout does actually warn people that he can sometimes get particularly, like, really emotional on stream. That's not a bad thing, but apparently that came across as as fake after a while, after it happened several times to this particular viewer. So yeah, not really anyone's place to say whether or not that was really the case. I mean, you know, different people are affected differently by different things. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, regardless of that, it seemed like this person was actually like making public videos saying not to support Wipeout Arena Fan 14, and also to I guess that might be part of the reason why he was losing those subscribers I mentioned before, and hasn't actually surpassed 400 yet. So yeah, definitely something that they needed, that required, you know, the support of everyone around. And one of those other people who was around was Maddie's Gacha, who had been on my list of people to review for some time. I don't remember if Maddie herself requested that she be reviewed by me, or that it was somebody else on her behalf. It could be either one, honestly. And actually, yeah, it was mentioned that, because I mentioned that my first anime ever was actually the first Pretty Cure, that she had a different thing in there that was inspired by that franchise called Precure Elemental. So yeah, needless to say, I was planning to actually check that out at some point. Just so happened she was actually due the very next day. But yeah, so Maddie was there trying to offer some support in the form of, you know, a little bit of like, I'm going through something as well. Now, obviously, depending on who you ask, that's either a bad method or a good method of how to actually deal with other people's problems, because, you know, it can make them either feel like you're trying to talk too much about yourself, or it can make them feel like you're like, you know, they're going through something too, therefore you're not alone. It really does depend on the person, but yeah, I guess in this instance, it seemed like Maddie was going for the you're not alone approach. So yeah, as it turns out, Maddie has also had a falling out with one of her friends. Now, that, you know, so far so standard, obviously. But then, of course, when you hear the reason why, then you start to understand, oh, okay. So the next comment was that her friend, and I quote, thinks she's a boy, or thinks she's a man. I can't remember which one it was. So yeah, that's when I kind of had to drop the support act and be like, okay, this needs to be addressed. So, I mean, especially, it was a comment that was made on a public stream that was supposed to be in support of somebody else, and there you are expressing bigotry right in that moment. You know, fulfilling the role of the toxic friend in that instance, which made it even worse. So I tried to politely say, so what is wrong with, you know, with what your friend is doing? Why is it you had to have an argument with him? And then not only does she actually correct my pronouns, you know, and actually has to go back to be like, oh, well, her, which, you know, classic if, you know, you think someone just thinks they're a different gender. Yeah. So it was literally just, you know, the case of, oh, well, you know, I'm Christian, so I love what God loves, and I hate what God hates. So yeah, unfortunately, I tried to bring BB and people in, because I know that BB, apart from being trans herself, also actually has plenty of knowledge of the Bible, and did in fact clarify this very point, that the line of, you know, man shall not lay with man is actually a mistranslation from the Hebrew version, where the word man was actually meant to be child. So it was a whole different kind of sin that was being dealt with. So yeah, needless to say, that was not, and that was like the only evidence apparently in the Bible, according to BB, that there was anything that God might have implied to do with homophobia. Or any kind of phobia for that matter. Well, I guess not any kind of phobia, but that particular branch of phobia? I don't know what to refer to as. You get what I'm saying. So yeah, I couldn't say that in the moment. I was really hoping. I did try and ask what part of the Bible does it say that in, but unfortunately around this time, rather inconveniently, but my computer stops working and then I can't actually send messages. So I can still see my own messages, but whenever I refresh the page, they're gone. And whenever I see everyone else seems to be like, oh, where did Jacob go? Where did Jacob go? And it's like I'm trying to say, I'm here. But that didn't work. So yeah, after that, I realized, okay, I couldn't deal with this here. I'm reviewing Maddie tomorrow. I'm going to take the screenshot that I sent to BB. Unfortunately, I couldn't grab any of the other ones because then the stream ended up going to the ether. Because unfortunately, Wipeout Arena Fan doesn't really title his streams really well. They're just all called Gacha. So, yeah, not ideal. So yeah, I can't find anything else, but I have the original screenshots. And so then I put the plan into motion. So first of all, I invite a few guests on prior to the event. Normally I just have people ask to join me and then they're like, oh, okay, sure. I'll bring you in. But in this particular instance, I invited as many people who, were familiar with the situation as possible. And also it turns out that Ghosty did in fact show up. Ghosty wasn't really meant to be involved with that, but then she also came in and was like, okay, fine. So yeah, Aiden, BB, and Ghosty were there. And I told BB, keep your camera off for now. Maddie doesn't know who you are, and therefore will not know that you're trans. So just pretend that you have your camera off for ages because of a fault. And then we'll deal with that. And then also the other part of the plan was, Maddie commented using the Maddie's Dolls and Maddie's Dolls of Fairy Tales account, which is a different channel that she owns. So because I remembered from the Purple Heart 13 scandal from 3 years ago, that I need to make sure prior to calling someone out, that they are indeed who they say they are. They are indeed the same person. So yes, as it turns out, Maddie and Maddie were the same person. So yeah, Maddie herself confirmed that during the beginning of the stream. Unfortunately, she left before the reveal could actually happen. So we had it all timed out. So it was like halfway through, BB turns on her camera. Then afterwards in the conclusion, because I've actually now reviewed the video as per normal, then suddenly it's like, okay, well, you're doing this, we have expression here. But then, what is this you're doing here? Prevents people from expressing themselves properly because it's what God hates and etc, etc. And I put this thing on screen. And unfortunately, I don't think Ghosty was entirely clued into the plan. There were a few hints as towards me doing something, because instead of the normal colored border that I have, I actually put a trans flag in there. But I also at one point I actually said to Maddie, oh, I'm just making sure, I'm calling you, because Maddie said, oh, I go by Madeline or Maddie. I was like, oh, well, that's fine, we're all about people being called what they want to be called. And of course, Aiden got that was a dig, but because no one knew that I was going to actually bring this up again, then all of a sudden, that made sense in hindsight if anyone goes back and watches that video. So, yeah, that was a fun one. I might leave the video itself in the description just so people can actually check it out if they want to see how this all went down in real time. So, yeah, that was the plan and mission accomplished. So, yeah. What has happened since? Because obviously that's the part that hasn't been known. Well, at one point, Josh tried to feebly express concern for Maddie, because he seemed to be like, oh, I hope that Maddie doesn't get into any accidents or gets hurt or something like that. It's like, well, why would she in particular, out of all people to express concern for, why would she in particular have be more at risk at the moment. And Josh went, oh, I don't know. So I think that was him trying to defend a friend of his, but really not grasping exactly why she was called out. I mean, I highly doubt that Maddie would do that for her other friend in question. That much I can almost guarantee. So that's really the only mention of that. It seems like I have seen Maddie in a different stream of Wipeouts and Arena fans. So it seems that I don't know, maybe she hasn't really seen the actual video. Maybe she hasn't seen the rest of it, because she left halfway through before the calling out part actually happened. Like, unexpectedly so. So that was the only part that really failed, because I couldn't guarantee that she was going to stay. So yeah, it seems that she's virtually like unaffected by the moment, and hasn't really issued like any sort of addressing or any sort of apology or anything. Which is all I really wanted to happen, to be honest. Just for her to actually reflect, to learn that that's not what the Bible actually says, and that God does not hate trans people. That was really the objective. I wasn't trying to cause any witch hunt or anything. Unfortunately, though, that didn't happen. I'm glad it didn't happen. But yeah, on the part of Maddie herself, I really wish that she wasn't just, stone cold silent about the whole thing. That's my one regret with that matter. Everything else, yeah, absolutely. I feel no pity whatsoever. If you're going to spread hate publicly, then, I'm going to call you out for it. And I hope that your friend is actually doing well, and that he finds better people to hang out with, quite frankly, because he deserves it. So yeah, everyone else, please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. Subscribe to notes already, and on that note, until next time, farewell.